Okay, just to recap on the fuel pressure problem. Looks like the previous owner or somebody put on a new fuel pump. I've gone out and put on another fuel pump, and then I've put on this, I think it's an Edelbrock fuel pump. The fuel pumps were good. No, there weren't any problems there. The problem was with the fuel pressure gauge here. And what you have to do with them is remove the liquid from the fuel gauge. So here's a fuel pressure gauge here. So what you do is you remove that rubber plug, you drain out the liquid. It's got very thick liquid in it, and then you'll get your proper reading, because when these things heat up, the pressure will drop to zero. The second problem was the air filter to the carburetor was clogged, and that was giving a false reading. So when the fuel pressure dropped, the idle would go up and down. When the fuel pressure dropped on the fuel pressure gauge, which wasn't working. So both of them together checked up that there was a fuel pressure drop. It wasn't a drop. There was no problems. So far it's just the liquid in the fuel pressure gauge and a clogged air filter. The third problem is, we know from the previous videos that air is getting into the fuel lines somewhere in between the tank and the fuel pump. So what I'm going to do is, the tank's full of fuel. I have to put that fuel in the other fuel tank, and before I drop it, I might do a test to see if we get the same problem. I might run the fuel from the other fuel tank into the fuel pump and see what happens there. Okay, well here it is. This is how I'm getting the fuel out of the driver's side or left-hand side tank and over to the other side so that I can drop this tank. I've got a battery that's connected to the fuel pump. That's the fuel pump there. I believe that it can be put in place of a mechanical fuel pump. However, it is very loud. But anyway, I've got some hose going into the tank. That's the tank around there. And that's the in, that's the out. With these electric fuel pumps, it's a Carter P470. These could be a little bit bigger, these bolts, but just so long as you do them up not too hard and use some Loctite, they should be okay. So that's it there. Got some rubber grommets, but anyway, the hose is going out the other side. It's just some cheap food grade hose from the local hardware shop. Okay, so that's it there. And then it exits. Yeah, I find that this does have to be bottomed out about as far as it can go. Otherwise, there's a breathing tube there, and it can flow out of that if that's cracked. Because these old vehicles, this was made in 1977. It's a C20, and the rubber does deteriorate. You can go to a car shop and just buy the hose. Just look around for a heater hose, and you'll find it in the right shape, and you'll find something to use for the fuel lines. It's only because I persevered and just kept on doing tests with the mechanical fuel pump that I didn't have to install this. It is very loud, as I say, and you would not want this running on your truck if you didn't have to have it. So we know that mechanical fuel pumps do work. They are good. And but anyway, let's continue on. I'll get the fuel out of this tank, put it in the other tank, and I can drop this one. But I'll give you an idea of how loud that is. Okay, here's a good bit of information about the Carter mechanical fuel pumps, if I can get it to focus, that is. So I'll just scroll down. You may be able to make out a lot of this this writing. If you've got the time to bear with me, I mean, might be of some help. I mean, there is this this person seems to know a lot about it, and they're his instructions right there. I'll keep going. About halfway through. You may want to fast forward, or you can pause. It's quite a difficult problem. Mechanical fuel pumps not pumping. It was quite a surprise to me to find that they actually didn't work, and I can now see why in the future they did put the electrical fuel pumps in the Okay, it's the next day, and I've disconnected this tank and connected the other one, and we know that the other one, the left hand side tank, is full, so that should flow to the carburetor, and I'll show you that now. Okay, there's a filter in place. That's coming from that's the rear of the truck, and that's the front, and so this is the right hand side tank exit. This hose here, it's probably a bit hard to see. I'll focus, it might help. So that's it. It then comes through here, through the filter, back around, and connects to the metal line going to the fuel pump. The only real complications with this test could be that it leaks here somewhere, because this is just thin line, but we'll see how it goes. What we're looking for here is only if air gets into the fuel line. We've got good pressure now, not concerned about the fuel pump. So running from the other side tank, and we'll see if it allows air to get in. For this test, the fuel caps are left off. That's them there. I've always said the best thing about these trucks is the amount of space underneath, and this camera is actually mounted on a tripod underneath the truck, so that certainly makes life easier. Okay, I'll go and start it up. Okay, any leaks? There doesn't appear to be any leaks there. There doesn't appear to be any fuel in it either. I think fuel's only getting up to the filter. That's strange. Okay. Okay, I'll start it up again. One thing I do notice is you can see an air pocket just here at the highest point on the hose system. So we've got good air pressure, but I did have this filter with a return line. That's the return line there. I had that sitting on there and I removed it, but you can see now what purpose it would serve. So that top vent runs back to the tank, and that would take care of the air pocket. But there's no actual problems with the fuel line. There's good fuel in the line, and it's under good pressure. Okay, well this test has actually failed. I'll show you that air's still getting in the line near the fuel pump, but not at the tank. So I'll show you the fuel pump. Okay, that test was over a 25-minute period. So with this test, around about 15 minutes, I did notice a little bit of air just starting to form just up against the pump just here in this area. So that's from the tank. The tank's down in that direction. And then the air did flow, and we could see that air was getting in. However, the interesting thing is that this air pocket here did disappear. So the air pocket that was there, it disappeared. Must have worked its way out of the fuel system. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this stage is I'm going to say that this metal line going to the fuel pump, something's happening there. Air's getting in. There's a few joins. Maybe they're not done up properly or tightly enough. And I think if I run a line from here all the way to the fuel pump, I think we'll be able to know a bit more about it at least. Okay, so that's the metal line. So that hose there that runs to the metal line, can't really see it, it hides let's see, that's the vent. I'm holding my light, but that's the vent line there. The clear one behind it runs to the fuel line, and then that's it there. It runs along the frame rail and to the fuel pump. So we know from this test that it makes no difference whether the caps are on or off. And also, there's nothing wrong with the fuel tank vent or fuel supply systems. So next weekend we'll do that test. Run a piece of hose from the right side tank to the fuel pump, and then we'll know more.